I want to highlight a story from a part of the world where women actually are genuinely treated like garbage, and the left almost never seems to do anything to try to stand up for them. Beauty salon ban in Afghanistan is a blow to women's financial freedom. So this is basically a story about how in Afghanistan, now that the Taliban are in charge, they have officially banned beauty salons for women. They're shutting down businesses that these women have spent their lives building. We have a story of a 34-year-old mother of 2 who's not going to have her business anymore. It really is a sad story. I think as, an evil pro-man, pro-patriarchy person who thinks that anything that's bad for women is bad for men and anything that's bad for men is bad for women, I got to say, I hold very strongly to traditional values. I don't think there's anything against traditional values or traditional sensibilities of wanting women to be able to go to beauty salons. Something like this is just so horrible and senseless. But of course, the only time the left really wants to talk about the condition of women living under theocratic Islamic regimes is when they want to compare themselves to someone because politics in America didn't go their way.
They can't even go to school.
Yeah.
Where's the squad? Where's the Ilhan Omar?
Yep.
Where's AOC?
Nowhere to be seen.
Where's any conversation about this today? This is
Ayanna Pressley. Where are they?
They're nowhere, and it's because there's no consistency in their logic, right? I mean, so we're just pointing out in this article that without these beauty salons, which are women only, anyways, because of the culture and the theocratic role in Afghanistan, there are no places where women can publicly assemble without a male chaperone. Like they can be in their homes, and that's it. And women in America believe they are oppressed. I mean, I just find it deeply ironic and in some ways insensitive, right? The next time they're saying, we're with her, I want to ask you, who is her? That sounds the worst.
This is relativism.
Terrible grammar, but
this is relativism
right.
Because in a lot of ways, what it is you're told here in America, because we focus so much on ideological bounds that are on race, sexuality, and gender, is that stay in your lane. You can't comment on what's going on there because you inherently can't understand their culture. And a lot of the people that believe that haven't traveled the world. They haven't been outside the U.S. They have no frame of reference outside of that. So you're just, instead of having the uncomfortable conversation that you might want to criticize something about somebody who might not look like you or might not be from the same place as you, the idea is to just push the can down the road and ignore it, pretend like it's not happening.
And Hannah Claire, this whole business about women in America being oppressed is laughable.
Nonsense.
Every year
true.
that
Hear that, woman?
That Obama was in office.
I'm anti all of this narrative.
He would come out and talk about how women make X number of cents on the dollar compared to men.
It's a lie.
If that were true, you would fire all your men, hire women, and pocket the difference. There are more women now in college than men. The numbers of women entering medical school and law school equal the number of men.
Graduation stats too, right?
Yeah, graduation stats. Women live longer. I mean, 90% of the people behind bars are men. I mean, where are they oppressed?
This is the only instance in history that I'm familiar with of an oppressed class being more likely to win custody battles, being more likely to receive more lenient sentences for the same crimes, more likely to vote, more likely to receive a higher education, more likely to be considered for elite programs, such as being admitted into a STEM field based on their application. It's really, a difficult kind of oppression.
If that's oppression, peel me off some of that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what the women I think that's what the women in Afghanistan would say. They would say, we want that oppression. We want the Western American oppression. Thank you.
Well, even so, right, what we have to consider is because of the sexual revolution and modern feminism, and basically the way I've described feminism in the past is it's essentially, especially in the West, a PR campaign for the sexual revolution to try to get women to co-sign their own debasement and debasing. What we've done is we've reduced women to objects in a different way, where now all you exist to do is be sexually appealing to men. And once you've done that, and a human person is just a thing, and their value is merely a product of what they can give you, and a woman is just a sexual object, well, once a man, through surgical intervention, can emulate the secondary sex characteristics of womanhood that you find appealing, now he can be a woman too. I mean, we lose everything.
And Seamus, I think it's also driven by power and by politics. If the left convinces women that they are oppressed, it's the same thing as convincing blacks that they're still subject, second-class citizens.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. We are the party wearing the white hat in social justice for women and for minorities, and these guys over here, these dastardly Republicans, they wear the black hat.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The meme, it says Republicans are racist. Republicans, if they got to pick the Supreme Court, and it's just all Clarence Thomas. It's just a bunch of Clarence Thomases. It's also like for this topic, I think it's a lot to do with when you divide the men and women that way, and you make the woman an object, you are now inherently stopping the family from forming, right?
That's right.
So you start, it's just Marxism. It just ends up dividing the family
and
further.
It makes us enemies, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to live in a world where I don't believe I can live a happy life alongside men, hopefully with a man when I'm married. You know what I mean? Like, I want
That's
to
Hollywood.
believe that we are meant to be complementary and to build each other up through our unique strengths. I don't think that is the culture that progressive
seen
left tells us. And I think that's inherently destructive, right? So not only are we destroying the family by separating kids from the parents, but we are separating men from women, saying you guys are actually enemies, right? Especially if you're a man. You are the problem and you should hate yourself.
Thus, Benny Thompson, who is the chair of the so-called January 6th Insurrection Committee, can publicly refer to Clarence Thomas as an Uncle Tom.
It's unbelievable.
And nothing
It's
happened.
unbelievable. You know, it's so disgusting, this rhetoric that you hear. When people try to pile on somebody because they have the wrong opinion, they belong to some kind of minority group, as happens to you and happens to basically anyone else who speaks out against the left from the vantage point of someone in a group that they, quote unquote, represent. They end up being tarred and feathered. And what's so particularly heinous about it is, you know, if somebody tells you as a member of the out group that they don't like you. So like if a white person says something bad to a black person or a black person says something bad to a white person, that's bad. But at the very least, there hasn't been this narrative created that like your own in-group is rejecting you, your own family, your own friends, people in your community are rejecting you. To tell someone like you actually don't fit in with the category that you're a part of is a far worse way of slurring
You've been
someone.
banished from the village. We were talking about Thomas Sowell earlier.
Oh, he's incredible.
There's a magazine called Ebony Magazine. It comes out once a month. It's not nearly got the clout it used to have, but virtually every black family had it on the coffee table. We did for decades. And every year they'd have a feature called the 100 Most Influential Black Americans. And every year, absent from that list, Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, and even Clarence Thomas.
How is that possible?
Thomas Sowell's written about 40 books. David Mamet, the playwright, referred to Thomas Sowell as America's greatest contemporary philosopher. Walter Williams is the first, to my knowledge, only chair of an economics department of a non-historically black college, written a number of books. Both Thomas Sowell and he have had hundreds of outlets in their syndicated column, and most black people don't know who the hell they are because they've been banished from the village.
Can I ask, how did your Republican father respond to this? Did he point this out to you? Was this a conversation you had at home?
No, and this is just something that I observed. My Republican father said this about the Democrats. Democrats want to give you something for nothing. When you try and get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. One of his favorite statements. Speaking of which, in order for me to qualify for that next debate, next month in August 23rd is the debate. I need to have donations from 40,000 individuals. You can donate as little as $1. Just go to my website, elderforpresident.com or larryelder.com. $1. This vast audience, $1. Even if you want somebody else to talk about the kinds of things we're talking about, the epidemic of fatherlessness, the lie that America is systemically racist, the need for an amendment to fix spending to a certain percentage of the GDP, school choice. I even have a proposed legislation to get rid of these soft on crime George Soros-backed DAs.
That's great.
And that's on my website, larryelder.com. So even if you want somebody else to put those issues front and center, have me up there, hold my beer.
So just $1, and
Just $1.
They only have to donate $1. That's going to help you get on stage.
40,000 individual donations.
What kind of debate do you want, guys? We want an interesting debate?
Yeah. You want the great Eldersky up there or what? The black face of white supremacy in the flesh?
I sent it.
Mid-season form?
I sent that article to somebody because there's a lot of people I still have a lot of friends that are very liberal. I still consider myself fairly liberal on a lot of issues, but I have a lot of friends who just don't know that a lot of this stuff is going.
Right.
And it took an article about the black face of white supremacy to actually wake somebody up to the absolute ridiculousness of the narrative.
And Brett, that was a headline. It was a headline.
The
Headline was Larry Elder is the black face of white supremacy. Subheadline, you've been warned.
Yes.
Did you frame it?
And by the way, the woman that wrote it, her initials are Erica D. Smith. Oops. And I invited her on my radio show when the race was over because I had 2 months left in my contract, and she wouldn't come on.
Oh, what a
so
shock.
funny
Well,
to
she
say.
can't platform a white supremacist, right?
I have to ask, do you have this framed on your wall?
No, but I will.
Yeah, you should.
Good idea.
So
I worked very hard for that title.
Yeah.
Anna Claire.
I actually want to say what, okay, so when we're talking about like the power, like I talk a lot about the power of the media, and the most powerful thing they can do is not talk about something.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm talking. We're talking Thomas Sowell, we're talking about the fact that you're saying that almost all these black Americans don't know that Thomas Sowell exists. That's because he's not revered. He's not actually put into the public spotlight by anyone that they would actually watch media from. And all they would have to do is highlight him, highlight his work, but they don't because he doesn't co-sign the narrative.
This is a story I don't believe I've ever mentioned publicly. You remind me of it. I had a book New York Times bestseller book called The 10 Things You Can't Say in America. First chapter was blacks are more racist than white. Second chapter is white condescension is as bad as black racism. And then another chapter about the war on drugs and about the war on guns. And
That first
war
one
on
was a
healthcare.
Chris Rock bit.
Well,
back in
because
the
he said,
90s.
but it's because they hate black people
yes,
too.
that
was
was
his
a Chris
joke.
Rock
So
bit in the
I have
90s.
I have a friend who Jesse Jackson does not know is my friend, and my friend used to work for Operation Rainbow Push in Chicago, and he said Jesse Jackson's office had a bunch of books, bookcase behind his desk, but the books on his table are the ones he was really reading, and there was a copy of my book on his table, and I hit Jesse Jackson often in my book. He told me there was a conference call with a bunch of so-called black leaders, and they said, "What are we going to do about this mofo named Larry Elder?" And he said they all agreed the smartest strategy was to simply ignore me.
Exactly.
And that's what they've done. And I told you all these years I've tried to get these guys to come on. They won't come on. They simply have ignored me. They won't even mention my name.
Yep.
And
It's
they
the
made a
scariest part.
group decision. Like, just how
Don't
creepy
talk
and
about the
weird.
group chat before group
It's
chat.
so
Seriously.
creepy. Firstly, just to touch on the fact that Thomas Sowell wasn't mentioned, it's not just like Thomas Sowell is some intellectual who happened to be black. Like, he is one of the best political thinkers today. He's brilliant.
He is.
Anyone who's read his work, and he speaks so clearly too. He's not all over the place. He doesn't have trouble finding his thoughts. He just puts everything out there in a perfectly like concise and reasonable way. And everything he's written that I've read has been fantastic. But of course he's ignored because he's coming to conclusions which are very clearly true on a number of things. I don't agree with him on everything, but even when I disagree with him, he makes a remarkable
thoughtful.
case. It's thoughtful.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.